Everybody, thank you very much for joining us for this very important webinar. My name is Michael Josephs and I'm the marketing manager at Setra Systems. I'm joined today by three expert panelists from Setra. We have Michelle Mendoza, who's our product manager for our critical environment solutions and room pressure monitoring product line, Mike Soper, our resident critical environment subject matter expert, and Fran Nutter, our engineering manager and the brilliant mind behind our new AIIR product, which you'll see shortly. Thanks again for joining this webinar. This content is so important because lives are literally on the line. We want to equip you today with the information and solutions you need to keep your patients, students, and customers safe. Today we'll be discussing the need for hospitals, long-term care facilities, schools, dental offices, and really any interior space to prepare for surging cases of COVID-19. We'll discuss solutions to help you achieve cleaner air. We have a global audience today, and we are privileged to be able to share our insights and innovations with such a wide audience. Today's webinar will move fast as we'll be discussing trends and showing you via video some of our solutions that are being used around the world to help keep people safe. We'll be recording this webinar and we'll send out an on-demand video shortly after this live event ends. Just a couple housekeeping items before we get started. There's a live Q&A. Feel free to ask questions during or after the presentation using the Q&A chat feature on your screen. You should see it as a little question mark in a bubble. Feel free to type us your questions. Again, if feel free to ask during the presentation, or we will have an extended Q&A session after. So feel free to either hold your questions or ask them during the presentation. Secondly, I'm amazed by how many participants we have on today. I cannot stress enough the importance of reaching out to us early if you have any interest in any of the solutions that you see today. To that end, we've created a unique landing page. I'll send the URL shortly in the chat, where you can express your interest and get priority attention from our team. We are here for you during these challenging times, and our experts stand ready to help you keep your building safe. Without any further ado, I'll hand the virtual microphone to Michelle, who will get us started. Go ahead, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Mike. And thanks everyone for joining. We are looking forward to getting to share more with you today about our solutions that Setra can provide and trends that we're seeing in the market across different spaces and how they are able to increase the safety and efficacy of their responses to COVID-19 cases. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of content, including a couple video demos of the Setra Light Quick Mount Kit and our newest product, the Setra AIIR for negative pressure on demand creation or air purification. So we definitely have a lot to cover. Like Michael said, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat during the presentation. We'll get started talking about Setra and our participation in providing products for pressurized spaces, traditionally that have been used across hospitals and life science spaces. And then we'll talk about what we've seen in hospital and healthcare, as well as many other emerging applications and how they've thought through using negative pressure for increased safety amongst the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we'll cover the specific details of the Setra products that we have, room pressure monitors, and the Setra AIIR, and that's where we'll show you those video demos before allowing time for Q&A at the end. Okay, so Setra has been involved in creating products to help hospitals ensure that they have safe spaces from the room monitor perspective and the environmental sensor perspective of pressure, temperature, humidity, etc. for many years now. But one of these spaces in hospitals has become much more of an area of attention amongst the COVID-19 pandemic, and that's the airborne infection isolation room. The airborne infection isolation room is an area in a hospital where you would be able to isolate and quarantine a patient that is at risk for spreading contaminated particles in the air of a disease like COVID-19. And so the airborne infection isolation room is set up to prevent any contaminated particles from spreading beyond that quarantined area. You can see a little mock-up diagram here of how that would look in some scenarios. The negative air pressure that's used in the airborne infection isolation room is what keeps those particles inside. The negative pressure in the space relative to the outside reference area is what prevents any of the air and the particles in the air from escaping. You can see as well in the diagram the arrows indicating the direction of airflow that would be pulled by the negative pressure. And so when COVID-19 hit all of us back earlier in this year, we saw a lot of interest in providing additional monitoring and setups for airborne infection isolation rooms and use of negative pressure. We've really appreciated all of the feedback that we've heard from customers as well throughout this time, and that's helped us learn and adapt many of the solutions and products that we have to help enable these pandemic responses in both hospitals and other areas. And so we're going to start out by talking about some of that feedback and what we've heard across the various markets, and then I'll dive into the actual solutions and adaptations that we've made to our products to help out here. So I'm going to turn over to Mike Soper, who's going to talk about the trends that he's seen across the various markets related to COVID-19 responses.
Great, thanks, Michelle. So Michelle very eloquently outlined the airborne infection isolation rooms, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that first. Hospitals typically have only a few of these rooms, and obviously with a surge of COVID-19, there's a need for many more of those rooms. For example, a 200 or 300 bed hospital may only have 10 airborne infection isolation rooms, also called negative rooms in sort of the street talk of these types of spaces. So for hospitals, doing more of a conversion of either existing rooms or even positive rooms to create more pressurized negative spaces is something that we've seen today. And also the creation of temporary isolation spaces, not only within existing hospitals by maybe adding temporary anterooms outside patient rooms, but also field hospitals that might be set up in an auditorium or a field hospitals that might even be set up in parks or outdoors temporarily. So there's been a lot of adaptations that have been happening as we've seen COVID-19 to try to create temporary spaces to isolate patients. For some of the other healthcare spaces, we see that negative pressure isn't always needed for regular patients that might be coming into a hospital. But for COVID-19, there are procedures being done like pulmonary function testing, where someone is exhaling a lot. So it's not just somebody that is necessarily presenting symptoms for COVID-19, but just the normal course of testing patients for pulmonary functions or performing aerosol generating procedures. These are all areas of concern today as we sort of get more gravity in understanding the risks for COVID-19. When we start looking at non-healthcare applications, we see less traditional types of customers coming to Setra. We have dentists who have what they call operatories and those AGP, aerosol generating procedures. So great concern for the dental staff and other patients that might be nearby in the dentist's office undergoing non-AGP procedures. The photograph that's shown here is actually a long-term care facility in Maryland that has made some adaptations in a wing of their facility, where they've created an anteroom that's since been upgraded to more structured walls. But you can see at the end of the hallway there, they've created an anteroom with taped off and Velcroed plastic hanging down. And they're actually pressurizing that space for cascading negative pressure zones from the main part of the facility to the anteroom and then into the patient wing. Typically, you don't want to move long-term care residents to areas like this, but they've made some adaptations to get that done. Also, school nurses' offices or isolation facilities within schools. There's not many schools that I know of that have a negative pressure room. So creating spaces like that in an education and secondary education setting is something that we've seen today. So lots and lots of facility adaptations, not just in healthcare, but salons, education, long-term care facilities, dental offices, pulmonary function. This has really expanded, and Setra has seen a lot of demand. And we've been creating some innovations around this demand that Michelle and our team will be talking about in some of the subsequent slides. Also noted here is an ASHRAE April 2020 positioning document on infectious aerosols. So there are resources available on Setra's website or by contacting us that we can share with you to help you create these negative pressure zones and keep patients and staff safe in the healthcare setting. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Michelle, and we can keep going with more slides.
Great, thanks so much, Mike. So now I'm going to talk about the specific products that Setra has to help out with the usage of pressurized spaces and monitoring of your spaces to increase the safety of your areas. I'm going to start with talking about our range of monitoring solutions. And these have most typically been used in hospitals and healthcare facilities where regulations and best practices around patient safety with the pressurized environments have driven the need for monitoring across those spaces so that you can ensure that they're safe. We've listed a handful of these examples of spaces where hospitals can use negative and positive pressure to increase the safety of patients and staff. So for example, in an operating room, a use of positive pressure would ensure that any potentially contaminated particles outside of that operating room cannot enter that space and put the patient that's being operated on at risk. And then of course, the airborne infection isolation room, like we spoke about, uses negative pressure to keep any potentially contaminated particles inside. And that same theory is used in emergency departments as well, where you're not sure exactly what the issues are with the patients that are inside of there. And so erring on the side of caution to protect anyone outside of that space is where the negative pressure use can come into play. There's also protected environment rooms, or PE rooms, and those would be rooms for patients who are immunocompromised, and those would be kept at a positive pressure to ensure that, and again, any potential contaminations that are outside cannot get in, and providing that extra level of safety for the patient that's inside. And then we have some of the less commonly thought about areas like clean and dirty linen storage closets or sterile processing areas. Those same concepts of positive and negative pressure are used across hospital facilities to ensure that any of the contaminated linens or tools being used are kept under negative pressure, and then any of the clean ones are kept under positive pressure to use that to their advantage and increase the safety of everyone around them. It's not just pressure that needs to be monitored in some of these spaces, particularly in the operating room. There are many different parameters of the environment, like temperature, humidity, airflow in the space, that are good to have a strong sense of what's going on in that environment so that you can ensure that everything is operated within the parameters that are deemed to be safe during that surgery. For some of those more complex environments, that's where the Setra Flex comes into play, where you can monitor up to 6 parameters for a specific room and even have the ability to provide control capabilities for one of those parameters. Then jumping over to the Setra Lite, that's our most straightforward, easy to install and effective monitor for visual pressure indication. So in between needing lots of different parameter monitoring, all the way to some of the more straightforward spaces like clean and dirty linen closets where you just have pressure monitoring. There's a lot of other iterations that we provide with our range of room monitors. So whatever your unique situation is, Setra has a room monitor that can be customized for that. And then on top of all of that, we also have a continuous environmental monitoring solution that we call Setra SEMS. And that's actually a software program that you can use with the environmental sensors and monitors that we have for these areas, so that you can actually get logging of all of that information without the need for data loggers, and trending on all of those parameters as well in a single place that you can access from any web device at any point in time. And so it's a great way to increase the visibility and access to that type of information across your facilities. One of the key features here that can be provided with the Setra SEMS is remote alarm notifications. So you can actually get email or SMS text notification when a parameter goes out of spec and into alarm. And so you're able to react as quickly as possible to that, to that alarm notification. And so keeping track of all of these items is essential across hospitals and healthcare facilities with all these different types of solutions. Next, I'm going to talk about the iterations that we've done on some of our products, specifically around the Setra Lite, to help with speed of execution and ease of installation around setting up monitoring, particularly of negative pressure, which is what we've seen that surge in attention around negative pressure related to COVID-19. So we've tried to make the Setra Lite room pressure monitor as simple as possible to install. And we'll go through a video demo after this, where Fran will walk through the product itself and show you all the different aspects of how it can easily be installed, both on its own, as shown here in this photo from a hospital in Canada, and with the quick mount kit accessories that we have provided in this new iteration of the Setra Lite. With the quick mount kit accessories, the goal is that we are looking to provide to you mounting accessories and power adaptations, so that if you're in a temporary situation, you can set up the Setra Lite and have room pressure monitor in a minimally invasive way. Or even if you're in a permanent situation, you need to move fast, the mounting accessories can allow for even more speed of installation of the Setra Lite. So the video demo will show a bit more about that. But one more aspect around the Setra Lite and some of the solutions that we have to provide that I wanted to quickly touch upon is the Setra Lite portable kit and construction kit, which can be used in situations where you need to spot check the pressure in the areas. And so the portable kit and the construction kit come with tubing to provide you the ability to do those spot checks on pressure, as well as those same battery and AC power adapter options when you're not setting up running those permanent power wirings, and you can use the battery and AC power adapter for that speed and portability and ease of bringing the pressure check around to where you need to go. So now we're going to switch over to the video demos that we have, where Fran will walk us through the Setra Lite and the quick mount kit that I mentioned, and then switch over to the Setra AIIR Watch, which is our newest product related to creation of on-demand negative pressure and air purification solutions. We'll watch that video and then come back here where I will share a lot more details around the Setra AIIR Watch.
Hi everyone, the Setra Lite was designed to install in 5 or 10 minutes. It's got everything in the installation kit that allow you to accomplish that. We're using these in isolation spaces, whether you're repurposing an office or setting up a tent, any temporary isolation space. The unit installs with 2 screws. You put it on a single gang electrical box like you'd find in a light switch in an office, or you could cut a 2-inch hole in the wall and drop the unit right in there. We provide sheetrock anchors for that approach. And then the cover simply snaps on. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes. In the event you can't cut a hole in the wall or you don't have an electrical outlet available to you, we provided this emergency bracket that allows you to mount the Setra light right to that bracket. Now you can hang that bracket on a sheetrock screw, or you can hang it on a wire in the case of a tent. If you have nothing to hang it from, you just hang it from a wire. The unit runs on 24 volts, and so we also provide a battery backup in the event that you don't have electricity yet. In the event that you don't have a generator yet. We've tested the Setra light so that you can run it on a generator normally. We've tested it with Ingersoll Rand and a couple other models. But in the event that you don't even have a generator yet and you're in a hurry, use the battery pack. That'll last about 12 hours and that'll get you up and running immediately. In the event that all you have is an electrical outlet, then we provide this adapter with a global power supply. In other words, you can remove these tabs and put on any tab for any electrical outlet in the world. And it covers, I believe, 18 different countries.
We hope you've enjoyed this demonstration of the Setra Light Room Pressure Monitor and Quick Mount Kit accessories to help with fast, easy installation of monitoring and alarming around negative pressure in your airborne infection isolation spaces. The Setra Light Quick Mount Kit can be ordered with part number 229989, which includes the light monitor itself, as well as the accessories that we've shown you here today. Thank you. Welcome to Setra Systems in Boxborough, Massachusetts, where today we're going to show you the new Setra AIIR.
The Setra AIIR was designed to do a couple of things. It can pull an adequately sealed space negative with a 350 CFM blower, and can also treat the air that's passing through it. We do that with a HEPA filter and a UVC bulb. We actually use 2 UVC germicidal bulbs in this, and the goal with this is to have one pass effectiveness. As far as features go, we've got what we call the filter alert, and that also has a couple of different functions. One, it automatically tells you when your filters have become clogged to the point where you want to replace them. And when that happens, you'll get a yellow light here, and that'll give you about 85 to 150 hours to replace that filter. In the event your UV bulbs are coming to the end of their life, and the life of most UV bulbs is 8,000 to 9,000 hours, we have a timer set at 7,500 hours. It gives you a full 500 hours to order the new bulbs and find time to replace them and get up and running again. Once you put the bulbs in, you simply hit the face of the unit and it resets the timer and it goes green again.
The UVC bulbs and HEPA filtration just covered provides 99.99% effectiveness at sterilizing the air, making the Setra AIIR a comprehensive air purification and increased air circulation solution. Next, we'll cover how the Setra AIIR can be used for the creation of negative pressure isolation spaces. The Setra AIIR inside this office shown here is creating a negative pressure isolation space. You can see that we have the Setra Light Room Pressure Monitor mounted outside of the office, showing a green light ring, which indicates that the space inside is at a negative pressure relative to the hallway. That means that any potentially contaminated air will stay inside the isolation space while it is under negative pressure. Let's take a look at how the Setra AIIR is designed to create negative pressure.
We pull the room negative by plumbing in the back, and it's simply a 6-inch or a 4-inch exit tube. Goes from the end of the unit up into your HVAC system or power return, or out the window. But either way, the air is treated. The reason we plumb the back is so that we can pull that room negative.
Whether you're looking for a portable, fast way to create negative pressure isolation spaces, or just looking for improved air quality through purification and increased air circulation, we hope this video helps you envision how the Setra AIIR could help you create safer spaces for your application.
Okay. Great. We hope those video demos were helpful. Now I'm going to talk through the Setra AIIR in a bit more detail. So you got the introduction there in the video where you could see that the Setra AIIR can be used either as a comprehensive air purification solution or as a negative pressure creator. So first, I'm going to talk through the air purification option of the Setra AIIR and how that works and its effectiveness. And then I'll go into the negative pressure option and talk through some of those details around how that works and the installation of the unit and the exhaust. So the Setra AirWatch, when being used for comprehensive air purification, uses UVC light and HEPA filtration on the inside, as was mentioned in the video. That combination of the UVC light bulb being entrained on the HEPA filter allows for 99.99% effectiveness against viruses and bacteria, which we've had verified via a nationally recognized testing laboratory. In addition to that test via the third-party nationally recognized testing laboratory, we also decided to do some testing with the Setra AirWatch at our own facility using our advanced particle counters. The particle counters that Setra has are typically used in the most stringent of clean room environments like pharmaceutical manufacturing. So we took that particle counter product and used it to measure the space before and after the AirWatch was being used. And so we just have a standard office in one of our rooms in our building where we set up the particle counter, and that's the result in the graph that you see here, showing particles from PM 0.5 to PM 2.5 and their levels throughout a normal day. And then we brought in the AirWatch and turned it on to be recirculating that purified air. And you can see that within minutes, it dropped the level of particle count in the air at both of those sizes by greater than 99.8%. So that's a significant reduction in any sort of particles that you have in that space. And if any of those particles could be harmful, then it's increasing the safety of that space for the people that are inside there. It's also, of course, doing that by increasing the air circulation. Inside of the Setra AirWatch is a 350 CFM blower, which in the standard office that we tested it in, which is a 1,400 cubic feet office, it changes over that volume of air every 4 minutes at that flow rate. You can think about your space and we can help you think through your specific space dimensions, and then using the flow rate of the Setra AirWatch that it provides, you can calculate that exact changeover rate for your specific space. Next, I'm going to talk about using the AirWatch for negative pressure. And so we showed the AirWatch with the exhaust tube running out to send the air out, and that's what creates that negative pressure. The AirWatch is extremely customizable for your specific isolation space and needs. The standard package of the Setra AirWatch that you would order would come with an exhaust hose to send the air out of the space, which is what creates the negative pressure, as well as a standard vent that can be used for exhaust options like going out through a window or up through a ceiling tile. I'll talk through some of those details about the exhaust options on the next slide. But the next thing to think about as you're looking at the AirWatch for negative pressure is that our standard AirWatch solution also comes with the Setra Lite room pressure monitor included. So you can mount that outside your space and have constant monitoring of the negative pressure inside the space so that you'll know when the AirWatch is running, the negative pressure is working correctly, and everyone outside of that space is safe. Creating that negative pressure, like we've mentioned, is what prevents any contaminated particles from escaping into the hallway, which protects anyone in the surrounding areas. Inside the space where the Setra AirWatch is being used, you are also generating significant air changes per hour with the unit. Again, it does depend on the exact dimensions of your room, but for our standard size office, which is a 1,400 cubic foot volume of air in that office, we are getting 14 air changes per hour with the AirWatch alone. The great thing about the AirWatch as well is that it is powerful, but quiet and unobtrusive. Its sound volume is measured at 58 decibels, which is less than many of the appliances that you have in your home, like a running dishwasher or a window air conditioning unit. So when you think about installing the Setra AirWatch in various spaces for creation of negative pressure, you need to exhaust that air out, which is what enables the negative pressure to be created. There are several different scenarios that you can think about for exhausting the air out. Like I mentioned, the standard Setra AirWatch comes with the exhaust hose that you see here and the adjustable vent that we're showing here as well, that silver piece there. That adjustable vent can be used in any standard window that opens upwards or in any standard ceiling tile window. The vent adjusts from 2 feet to 3 feet in length, which can fit many different scenarios. However, if you have windows that open in a different direction, like crank windows that would open inwards, or a uniquely sized ceiling tiles, then you can order the Setra AIIR without the exhaust accessories, and then find the exact needs that the exact exhaust accessories for your specific need. So those options are available for you as well. In addition, you can exhaust the Setra AIIR exhaust air into your existing HVAC system. That same purification scenario that we talked about in the air purifier option of the Setra AIIR is being done in the negative pressure option of the Setra AIIR. It's the same HEPA filters and UVC bulbs that have been tested via the nationally recognized lab. So that exhaust air is safe to send anywhere. If you do want to look into the option to exhaust the air into your existing HVAC system, then we would recommend that you consult with your HVAC professionals to incorporate that in the best possible way. The AIIR unit itself plugs into a standard outlet, so there's no specific power needs that you would need to bring in outside of just a standard outlet. And the HEPA filter and UVC bulbs are on a replacement schedule of once per year for the HEPA filter and once per every 8,000 hours of runtime for the UVC bulbs. As was described in the video demo, the light ring that you can see on the front of the unit is actually used for monitoring of the life of the HEPA filter and the UVC bulbs. So when that light ring turns yellow, you know that it's time to change out your HEPA filter. And when it turns red, you know that you have about 75 hours, as was mentioned in the video, until your UVC bulbs need to be replaced. And that's how you're able to know that the sterilization process inside of the Setra AIIR is kept up to date at all times. And those replacement products can be purchased from us, so there's no going out and searching for what you need. And then lastly, you can see here, there's someone standing in the image next to the unit. And so it's not very large. Its dimensions are 18 inches by 18.5 by 25 inches. And so it's compact, it's on 4 wheels and portable, can be brought around to any space. And so you can really see how you can customize your solution with the Setra AIIR, whether you're looking for increased air circulation and purification or use of negative pressure, and you can customize that to your specific exhaust scenarios as well. So that covers what we wanted to share with you today. Looking forward to taking your questions now that you can put in the chat. One thing that we wanted to highlight is we really appreciate your time here in joining us today. And so to thank you for attending this webinar, we're offering a 20% off code for the Setra AIIR, either the negative pressure option or the air purification. It's valid for both of those options for the Setra AIIR. You can use the code AW on your AIIR on our airwatch.com e-commerce site, or you can bring it to your Setra sales rep if that's your preferred way of purchasing. This code is only available for 1 week, so definitely act fast, as was mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. And now I will open it up for any questions.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I apologize. I had some network issues, so I do not see the Q&A, but I did take note of a couple of questions that came in. Michelle, are you able to see the Q&A?
Let me pull that up. Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, I will get started with the question I saw, and then feel free to field any others in there. Again, I'd like to remind everyone that you can learn more at setra.com/AW. There's a form there where you can express your interest in the solutions you saw today and get some priority access to our team. And this 20% off discount is only available, like Michelle said, through next week. We just really want to get this new product in your hands. We want to help out our customers so that they can be prepared for a second wave, which is why we're offering this discount. Use code AW on our e-commerce site or mention it to a Setra sales rep. So with that, I saw this question come in as you were discussing AirWatch. For the negative pressure equipment, does it attempt to kill the airborne bacteria and viruses before they get exhausted?
Yes. So yes, the short answer is yes. What's happening inside of the AIIR watch is that the UVC bulbs are entrained on the HEPA filter. All of the airflow that is coming into the unit is going through that sterilization pathway. So all the airflow, regardless of whether it's getting recirculated or exhausted out, goes through the UVC bulbs and the HEPA filter itself. The reason that the HEPA filter and the UVC bulbs work well together is that the HEPA filter is trapping any of the contaminated particles in the air, and then the UVC bulbs are entrained on that HEPA filter to provide the sterilization and killing of the viruses and bacteria.
Great, thank you. Here's another question that I took down. What is unique about AIIR versus other air cleaners?
Yeah, great question. So the thing that makes the AIIR unique is the ability to incorporate exactly what you need for your air cleaner solution. So the negative pressure aspect is something that we think is one of the most beneficial features of the AIIR for on-demand creation of negative pressure. There are many purifiers out there on the market that are doing air purification and recirculation and increase of air circulation, of course, which the Setra AIIR does do in an extremely effective way. But the ability to add in that negative pressure option and create isolation spaces is what makes it a very effective and impactful solution for many areas. And earlier in the presentation, Mike Soper talked about long-term care facilities and dental offices, where they're thinking about how negative pressure can help them keep their patients and their staff safe. And that is what really differentiates the AIIR, is that creation of negative pressure in these scenarios where isolation is so important. One of the specific features to the AIIR that is extremely helpful for long-term care facilities is the fact that it is portable and on wheels. It's not clunky. It doesn't get, stuck in the first place that you install it. You can move it around to wherever you need so that you don't have to move that person themselves that needs to be isolated. You can bring the negative pressure isolation to them.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a little bit. This is Fran. When you compare this to a lot of those air cleaning systems out there, the key to the AIIR is first pass effectiveness, and there's two things that you accomplish to get that done. One is close proximity to the virus, and the other is dwell time on that virus. There's a lot of air purifiers out there that just have a filter or just a HEPA filter, and what that does is it captures the virus, and now you know where that virus is. It's in the room with you, and it's on that filter. And I'm not are you going to replace that filter? I'm not. The HEPA filter catches the virus for the UV bulb. And we have two UV bulbs. We have a factor of safety of 2.0 to neutralize the virus trained on that filter all day long. And so having both together is the key item. If you've got treatment systems out there that just use a UV bulb, that's a problem. If you've got, imagine air passing by a UV bulb, you need to be dwelling on that virus for a specific amount of time. With the air going by that bulb at even 25 CFM, that's too fast. You need to stop the virus in front of that bulb, train on that virus before it continues on, and that's what the HEPA filter does for us. So you got to have both when you're trying to compare the AIIR to any other system out there. Thanks.
Thanks,
So
Frank.
Michelle, this is Mike Soper. I can see the questions also. It looks like there's 7 or 8 questions from other participants. If you like, I can assist if Mike's having connectivity issues.
Please do, Mike. I've lost the chat, so please do feel free to field those questions for Michelle and Fran and.
Sure. So I'm going to start with actually the second one, because the first one is a little bit confusing. We'll come back around to that. Can you briefly explain how to clean this device?
Sure. So I'll get that one started, and then Fran, I'll turn it over to you so you can talk about a bit more of the technical details of what's inside. So the only maintenance that is needed on this device and changes that are needed on the device by the owner is that replacement of the HEPA filter once per year and the change out of the UVC bulbs once per every 8,000 hours of runtime. The operating instructions that we have describe in detail with imagery about how to open the top of the unit and replace the filter and the bulbs in the safest possible way. And then just one note while we're talking about that before I turn it over to Fran for more about the inside and how you would think about the cleanliness of the device. The unit is set up with a safety feature so that if you were to try to remove the top of the unit while it was running, you cannot get the screws all the way undone to actually remove the top of the unit without the unit kicking itself off. And so you know that you'll be able to safely go into the unit and do that replacement of the HEPA filter and the UVC bulb, which is, again, the only maintenance that's needed by the owner for the unit. So Fran, is there anything that you'd like to share about how you would think about cleaning the device?
Yeah, there's quite a few features in the unit. First of all, as Michelle said, you don't really need to clean it. It's just the filters and the bulbs you need to concern yourself with. And you don't need to concern yourself with those either because the unit keeps track of that for you. So the HEPA filters, we're measuring the pressure drop across those filters, and we know when they're getting about 70%, 80% clogged, and we want to have you swap those out when we reach that point for two reasons. It doesn't have anything to do with the performance of the unit on the virus, but you start losing your air changes per hour if you get up there too high. So when it reaches that level of about 75% clog, you get a yellow ring that alerts you to go ahead and replace your filters. It's not an emergency, but at your leisure, order a replacement filter. Put the filter in, as Michelle described. And by the way, all this stuff is spelled out in our owner's manual. And anybody interested in seeing how it's done, just send us an email and we'll send you the owner's manual and you can read through it. It's got pictures and everything in it. You replace your filter, put the cover back on, and the light turns green automatically. With the bulbs, they last 8,000 to 9,000 hours, as I mentioned. I know Michelle had mentioned you have about 75 hours. We actually give you 500 hours. So we have a timer in there at 7,500 hours of operation. That gives you 500 hours or a couple of weeks to get the part number of the bulbs, order the bulbs from us, and decide when you want to put them in. And you put them in the same way you do the HEPA filters. Take the cover off, unscrew the bulbs like you would any 100-watt light bulb that you find at your house. Screw in the new ones and then put the cover back on and press the face of the filter alert, and it resets the timer for you. So you don't have to, mark it on your calendar when to do it. The unit will tell you when to do it. We have another feature inside the AIIR that keeps track of the bulbs themselves. If one breaks for any reason, or you didn't tighten it when you put a new one in, or you left one out, the unit won't run. We consider that a safety item. Both bulbs need to be running. Although there only one bulb is required, we're pretty diligent about safety on this thing. So if one of the bulbs or both bulbs are loose or missing or broken, we shut the unit right off. And that's right in your owner's manual. That's one of the only reasons that unit won't be running is because one of those bulbs isn't working. We want you to replace that bulb and feel confident that you're treating everything that's passing through it. The key is first pass effectiveness. That's the difference with this. The minute that air leaves the AIIR, you're safe.
Thanks, Fran. A question regarding the UV lamps. Since UV lamps are used for stationary objects, how is it that UV lamps can be effective during airflow? And then a related question about protecting the technician during any replacement of the lamps or filters.
Yeah, that's right. You have to be trained on a fixed candidate. That's why we stop the virus on the HEPA filter, and we train two bulbs on that filter where the virus is. That eliminates that question altogether. We're training on it all day long. If the unit's on, we're slamming that virus with UV rays. And as I said, about 2 times factor of safety on it. The regulatory bodies require about 45 watts per square centimeter, or 4,500 microwatts, depending on how you look at it. And we have double that. We're something like 83 watts per square centimeter. So we have plenty of strength to do it. And Mike, what was this protection of any technicians? The way our unit is designed, we actually neutralize the virus through its RNA or DNA in 0.57 seconds. And that's plenty of time. It's less than 1 second. we're killing those viruses. So when you shut the unit off, those UV bulbs cool down, come down, and it takes about 1.5 seconds for that to occur. Virus is dead. We still tell people to put on some disposable gloves when you go in there, put the dirty filter in a bag, and dispose of it safely and all that. But you're safe in working in there. That virus is being pulled and controlled by our airflow, is being directed to that HEPA filter, and is being neutralized by those bulbs.
Okay. What's the difference in the air purifier model and the negative pressure model?
Sure, I can take that one. So with the air purifier model, what's included when you order that is the AIIR unit itself. So in some of the photos that you saw, actually, I think I have an appendix slide that might help with this. So if you can see the screen, the air purification model includes just the unit itself. So it wouldn't come with any of the exhaust hose or exhaust accessories. That exhaust grill would be covered just for safety, like you saw in the video, so that the air can still get out, but no humans can reach in or have any safety impact there. So the air purification module is just the AIIR unit. When you order the negative pressure model, you are looking to exhaust the air out. And so we include that flexible exhaust hose. I think I saw a question about the length of that hose. It's 6 feet of hose that we provide. If you need something, more unique to your space, we would definitely, recommend that you try not to run the exhaust hose further than 25 feet. Something much longer than that starts to reduce the ability of the unit to pull that same 350 CFM. But what we provide is 6 feet of flexible exhaust hose with the clamps to attach it to the unit and to the adjustable vent panel, which we provide for standard window and standard ceiling tile. It fits for both scenarios, and we've seen people use both scenarios of exhaust air either up into their ceiling tiles or out the window. And then it comes with the Setra Light room pressure monitor that you can see that we have mounted outside of the door here, as well as the quick mount kit accessories that we covered today. So it comes with the bracket and the power adapters for the Setra Light room pressure monitor that you would mount outside of your space to ensure that there's safe negative pressure on the inside. All of that can be adjusted based off your specific need, but the standard negative pressure module includes everything listed here, and the standard air purification module comes with just the unit itself for air recirculation.
Great. Another question, and Mike Joseph's just cut me off as we get close to the hour, but there's several questions that have come in. Those questions that might be more technical, we may take those offline and answer those, but please be assured that if we don't address any questions here, then we'll contact you and send those questions out or have those questions posted on our website. Is there any impact to temperature inside the room if using AIIR? And Michelle, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a crack at this one.
Sure, go for it.
Can embellish if you want to. There's generally no impact to the temperature inside the room unless it's much warmer on the adjacent space where you might be pulling additional warm air or colder air inside. But the actual AIIR device itself does not heat up or generate anything that's going to contribute to the temperature inside the room. What I will describe for people is that there are some room situations where if you have a closed door in a negatively pressurized space, you might have heat coming on and then going off, or air conditioning coming on and going off. And if that's going to dump additional air volume into the space, that's going to potentially compromise the negative pressure. So what I encourage people to do is work with your HVAC service company to make sure that the fan is always on in that room, not the fan on the AIIR unit, but the fan for either heating or air conditioning, and then you'll be able to balance the room so that when AIIR is operational, that you have a stable negative pressurized zone.
Great.
Anything else, Michelle or Fran, you want to add to that?
No, that covers it.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
great. Actually, while you were speaking, Mike, I saw a great question come in about how does the AIIR module and the light room pressure monitor communicate? So the light room pressure monitor works independently on its own with tubing that is run from the light monitor itself to the opposite side of the room. So the light monitor is mounted outside of your isolation space. The tubing is run to the inside of the isolation space with a pressure pickup port that is all included with the Setra light room monitor. And then that tubing is what picks up the differential pressure between the outside and the inside. The AIIR module itself is running at a single speed, and so it is independent of what the light the light monitor is seeing. And so that's why there is the option where if your space does not work for setting up the Setra light room pressure monitor, you are able to order the AIIR without that if it doesn't work for you. They work independently of each other.
And Michelle, what's the maximum area or volume of room coverage for a single AIIR unit? Maybe you could speak to the table that we've developed.
Yes, definitely. So the AIIR will pull that airflow rate of 350 cubic feet per minute, regardless of whatever space you put it in. And so what you can do is calculate the air changes per hour that you will get with the AIIR depending on the dimensions of your room. During the presentation, I mentioned 1,400 cubic feet as the volume of the standard office that we've been using the AIIR in to collect some of the data that we've shown you. And so what we've put together, which will be available on our website really soon, is just a very simple calculator where you can enter the dimensions of your room, the length and width and height. And then once we have your specific air volume in your space, it will tell you the number of air changes per hour that the AIIR can generate.
Okay. Looks like a housekeeping question. Will we have access to this webinar presentation itself or a replay of the webinar?
We are recording this webinar, excuse me, and we'll make that available shortly after. We'll do our best to make this available today. It'll certainly be available sometime soon, and we will email it out to everybody who signed up. So if you signed up through the registration link, we will email you a copy of this recording and also all the resources we talked about today. Good question.
Okay. Do we have time for one or two more?
I think so. If anybody needs to drop off again, it is being recorded. I think we can take a few more and then we should wrap it up. I'm excited to see all the interest going on. I just want to put out there one more time, because I've seen quite a number of inquiries already come in. If you have any interest in these products, if you think you might need it sometime soon, please reach out to us sooner rather than later. We can certainly see demand spiking. We're already seeing the beginnings of that. If in fact we do have the reality of the second wave. And the best way to do that is to go to setra.com/AW. You can see it right up there on the screen. There's a contact form there. We will give you priority support. So go ahead, Mike, with those couple last questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Are there any regulations on how to dispose of the HEPA filter?
No, there isn't. As I said, we've neutralized the virus, so it's a dirty filter like any other when you replace it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the approximate cost of the AIIR unit?
So as we're showing here on the screen, we're offering this limited time 20% off of list price for the unit for attending this webinar. We do have an e-commerce site available if that's your preferred method of purchasing. You can go on there and see the negative pressure option and the air purification option, and all of that has price and shipping based off of where you're going. And the other option, of course, is to talk to your Setra sales rep. We would definitely encourage that as well if you are interested in any, volume of units, anything over, 5 or so units. We can work with you to look into additional discounts based off of the volume of units that you may need. We have a specific form on our e-commerce site as well, airwatch.com, for bulk inquiry situations as well.
Okay, and just one more question that came in. Can the unit be converted from one version to the other? Presumably the recirculation versus the negative.
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, Fran, I may defer this one to you around the exit grill covering. One thing that, the most obvious answer is if you were to order the negative pressure unit with all the exhaust accessories, you can just not use the exhaust accessories and use it for air purification and air circulation. It would be the exact same thing as using it as the air purifier. I just wanted to check, Fran, about the exit grill, if there would be any considerations there.
Nope, the exit grill is present no matter what. It's designed so you can just slide the exhaust accessory right over it. Yep.
So if you ordered it as the negative pressure option and decided you wanted it instead for recirculation, you can do that without any adjustments needed. You just don't connect the exhaust hose.
Yeah, so that looks like all the questions that I can see. Mike Josephs, you want to take over?
Sure. Well, thank you everyone again for joining. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. Again, I encourage everyone, please reach out to us sooner rather than later, express that interest, and just get on our radar. We'll keep you updated with lead time and other resources as things progress here. But again, just want to thank everyone who attended and stayed with us for the full hour for their time. Thank you, Fran, Mike, and Michelle, for your time today. And we wish you the best, and we hope everyone stays safe. Thanks again.